721 here, Big 550 KTRS. Coming up in 1/2 hour from now, Eric Schmidt is going to be joining us. One, friend of the show. Two, sits on the board of Nurses for Newborns. So can't get any worse, can't get any better than that. The guy's a saint. He's also sitting on this panel that is investigating what happened in Ferguson and the who, what, when, where, why, and how. I think it is most vital to remember the timeline of all of this stuff, because the National Guard was called up before the decision was announced by Bob McCullough. Why, Governor Nixon? Because personal property is going to be protected. People's lives are going to be protected. What happened last time is not going to happen again this time. Right?
That was the goal. He did not want to repeat.
That's why he called for a preemptive state of emergency. Now, yesterday, he spoke at a news conference in which they were changing the head of the Missouri State Patrol. There was a change at the top. The head man retired, and so they were having a conversation. Elliot Davis from Fox 2 News was there, and he filed this report for Fox News.
Governor Nixon defended his handling of the violence prior to tonight's hearing.
Fox 2's Elliot Davis was there and is back with just how the governor is answering his critics. Elliot?
Well, Tom, Governor Nixon not admitting to any mistakes in his handling of the crisis the night the grand jury decision was released. The governor pointed out at a news in Jeff City that no one was killed on either side, police or protesters. Still, he was peppered with questions on whether some of the destruction that scarred Ferguson could have been avoided had he brought in more National Guardsmen sooner. The governor said at his newser that he didn't have guardsmen on the streets of Ferguson, but they were around the command post as backup for police. Critics say they should have been positioned along the streets guarding businesses. Didn't you drop the ball?
As I said before, the theory here and the practice was that people who had been on the front edge of this, literally getting yelled at, getting things thrown at them, getting called a lot of names, that those post-certified officers were the people to be in front.
What I'm saying, we ended up bringing a large guard presence in anyway after the damage was done. So why couldn't you brought them in before?
They're all across the region, whether it was fire stations in the city, whether it was the courthouse in Clayton. The bottom line is, we'll let some others ask questions too. I mean, anybody else?
The governor was asked about the Ferguson mayor's plea for more help before and after the grand jury's decision was released.
You had a lot of police officers all over the place.
Right now, Ferguson businesses still struggling months after the trouble hit. When was the last time you were in Ferguson, Governor, taking a walking tour of the damaged area?
I don't have my schedule. I'm through there a fair amount. I was just at UMSL the other day and right on through there. I've been there. I'm in St. Louis a lot.
No, I'm saying, when was the last time you took a walking?
I don't have my schedule in front of me. Somebody can get you that. I drive through there.
A walking tour of the damaged area in Ferguson, talking to the business people affected to get an idea of what the situation on the ground is now in Ferguson.
Well aware.
When was the last time you were there?
I'm well aware of what the situation is there.
So, Governor Nixon believes he was on top of the Ferguson crisis back in November and is on top of Ferguson's efforts to rebuild. But there are still a lot of folks who believe he dropped the ball in a big way. Tom?
That is, all right, that's Elliot Davis from Fox 2. Now, this post-certified, which I don't understand what that means. I've never heard of that before. You played a clip at the top of the hour. I want to play that again. David, play that clip again of Governor Nixon from yesterday's news conference.
The theory here and the practice was that people who had been on the front edge of this, literally getting yelled at, getting things thrown at them, getting called a lot of names, that those post-certified officers were the people to be in front.
Post-certified officers.
So what does he mean? The people, is he talking about Highway Patrol? Is he talking about National Guard? Is he talking about
the police? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what post-certified means.
I don't even know who he means.
Right, I don't know.
To whom he's referring.
So there's another clip in which he says, the National Guard are trained killers. You don't want trained killers with guns in the face of American citizens. That's basically why he didn't call them out, even though he called them up. He didn't call them to protect the businesses. Now,
can I quote that? Can I give you a quote? Since
go ahead.
We don't really have that on tape.
Right.
He says, quote, American soldiers pointing their weapons at American citizens that were unarmed is not a good thing, Mr. Nixon said. This is from New York Times. These folks were trained to kill. That's what soldiers do.
Right. Okay. Now, we can argue about that's what the role of the National Guard is, but that's what he said. Now, let's go back to a news conference. From what I understand, this is the day after the first night. So this is the worst. It all went down. The epic fail, right? Governor Bob McCullough announces there's going to be no indictment of the officer. You go to Ferguson, let's burn this place down that night. This comment from Governor Nixon is from the next day. Go.
This morning and into this afternoon, I met with Guard and law enforcement leaders. All agree that the violence we saw in the areas of Ferguson last night cannot be repeated. That is why, in order to protect lives and property, we are bringing more resources to Ferguson and other parts of the region to prevent a repetition of the lawlessness experienced overnight. The National Guard presence will be ramped up significantly in Ferguson and ensuring that they are ready to act quickly to prevent violence. First, we are deploying hundreds of additional guardsmen to Ferguson who will be stationed throughout the community to protect homes and businesses. With these additional citizen soldiers, law enforcement officers will be better able to focus on protecting lives and property in the community. The Missouri National Guard will also continue to provide security at critical locations, including the Ferguson Police Department. Last night, more than 700 guardsmen were at nearly 100 vital facilities throughout this region, in both the city and the county, and I thank them for their work. It is a testament to the professionalism of local law enforcement, the Missouri State Highway Patrol, and the Guard that no one was killed or seriously injured last night. Third, the Guard's rapid response teams will be positioned so that they are ready to act at a moment's notice if challenges arise. Altogether, there will be more than 2,200 National Guardsmen in the region. Lives and property must be protected. This community deserves to have peace. We will provide safety and security to the region.
All right. Now, what is it? Is the National Guard trained assassins that we don't want them pointing guns at unarmed Americans? Or are they going to protect property?
He calls them citizen soldiers.
Right. Which is it? You're telling me that he did not have the most amount of National Guards the first night because he didn't want these people to be right. All of this force was bad. And then the next night, we're going to have more force. Mm-hmm. So which is it, Governor? Why did you call them up? Why did you not use them? And then after the worst of the worst, why did you then call up more and then deploy them in places the mayor of Ferguson was begging you to deploy them in the first night? So which is it, Governor?
Maybe you need to be on that.
I mean, it is so frustrating and so upsetting. And this is why the people of Ferguson are heartbroken. This is why they're having these hearings in Jefferson City.
And imagine how, we are frustrated.
Right.
So imagine how those business owners felt. Imagine how the residents of Ferguson, and the question posed by Elliot Davis, when was the last time you've been in Ferguson?
Right. I
was in Umsel, and I drove through.
This is why in 2015, you have the most liberal, black elected officials sitting next to the most conservative, white, rural Republicans on the same panel demanding answers from the governor. Mm-hmm. The governor has been able to unify the state in the fact that where were you? Why couldn't we get you on the phone? Where was the National Guard? And if there was a reason why you didn't have them the first night, why did you deploy more in a different way on the second night? Mm-hmm. We'll talk to Eric Schmidt, who's sitting on that panel in a half hour. 7:31 here, Big 5.